Members of Parliament, support staff, Minister of Finance Gumbs and her support staff, persons in the public tribune of Parliament, persons tuned back in to this meeting, welcome back and a good afternoon. Following the presentation by the Minister of Finance on the draft amended budget 2024, we had an adjournment, during which time, amongst other things, the presentation made by the Minister was shared with members of Parliament. As I mentioned, the Minister made her presentation and gave her introductory remarks on the topic, and we are now at the point where members of Parliament have the opportunity in this Central Committee meeting to post questions regarding the amended budget 2024. Of course, it's a Central Committee meeting, but if you can indicate your desire to speak, then we can keep note of it. It is not required that you use a sign-in sheet, but of course we have electronically that can be indicated, or if you give an indication, the Secretary General will take note of it. So with that, to whom can I give the floor? We have MP Ludmila De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to the Minister of Finance and her support staff, everyone viewing and listening. Really quickly, just some tracing questions. If I review the first page of the wijziging overview, where it notes the changes that are made in this budget versus the original budget, and tracing those numbers through to the page 60, I believe. I'm trying to look at my notes. I'm so sorry. If we go to page 1 of the in-house opgave, just tracing the Batten and Luston from the 2024 approved budget in March versus this amended budget in 2024, there's a 50,000 difference in the Batten for the old one. So I just wanted to know if that is something very small that could be adjusted. But if you go and try and trace it through the rest of the budget, the original amount is referring to an amount of 574,832,303. So if we could just make sure that that is corrected. Also, very, very briefly, just trying to make sense of the presentation that the Minister of Finance gave us about the changes, and I noted the significant reduction, as stated by the Minister of Finance, in personnel costs that were overstated by some 12 million, I believe, is what was noted. And these are just some comments, well, actually, rather some questions for clarification's sake. And of course, when we're dealing with this budget, even though I have little tab guiders for me myself, I still have to go spin through. So my apologies while I look for it. If we are starting with the review of the Ministry of Algemene Zaken, this is my expectations based on the presentation from the Minister of Finance of the 12 million decrease in budgeted costs. If I go to the budgeted vacancies for the year 2024, what was noted for the Ministry of General Affairs is budgeted vacancies of 9, whereas in the original budget it was 5 vacancies. And what I wanted to find out, well, the budgeted personnel vacancies cost in this year was 536,300, so 536,000 guilders, 300, and then in the previous year it was 580,906. But I just wanted to understand if our costs are going, if our budgeted vacancies count, so the number of employees are going up by 4, why are the costs going down? Just to make sure that they're matching and my expectations are in line. Was it, are the additional employees, well, it can't be negative, negative salaries, right? Negative pay. But I wanted to know if the makeup of the 9 employees or the budgeted employees changed. Like if it was persons with less salary, for instance, that would basically match the fact that you have more employees, but they cost less in comparison to 2024 approved budget of March. Going on to the Ministry of Finance, I made a note here of I don't understand why the budgeted vacancies are the same, but the costs are lower. Similar sort of question compared to the Ministry of General Affairs, if there is a change in profiles of the vacancies compared to the 2024 approved budget. Going on to the Ministry of Justice, and I hope that by asking this question, it will bring the big picture for the full understanding of why the drastic changes. So the budgeted vacancies count in the 2024 approved budget was 53 personnel, 53 employees, whereas now it is down to 3. So of course, the change in the cost associated with that 53 employees versus 3 employees is a significant amount of 2.8 million, which is an expected trend that you will see. So you have less people, you have less costs. But if they can explain to me why we are now budgeting for 50 persons less than in March of 2024, please. And keep in mind because I have my notes and I have my old budget here, so I try to really put everything together, but it's a big difference for me from March to now, so I just need to make sure that that explanation is very clear for all of us, as well as just the expectations of what we can get from the Ministry of Justice. Let us see. The ECYS was also a big decrease in budgeted vacancies from 24 persons to 6 persons. We're in the right direction, the trend meaning decreased costs, but I just want to make sure that, while we're trying to make this budget realistic, to make sure that there's not any expectations either of, let's say, much needed vacancies not being there. Remember, the term that would always be used was critical vacancies. So just to make sure that this is including the actual critical vacancies needed for the Ministry of ECYS, considering that is a difference of 18 employees. I think the biggest effects that we see in the changes of the budget, trying to make it realistic by the 12 million decrease in personnel costs, is more so in justice and also in ECYS. And VSA seems very straightforward in terms of the changes. And that is it for now, Madam Chair Lady. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Ludmila de Wever. Members of Parliament, I look to the next member who wishes to speak to the topic in Central Committee. Am I hearing you, MP de Wever, to say you have something adding? No? MP Gumbs has indicated, yes, and she's also on the screen here. MP Gumbs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to you, Rifir, my colleagues, the Minister and her staff, and those joining us online or here in the Tribune, as well as other support staff from the government. Madam Chair Lady, for me, I think one of my first questions would actually be, I guess, intended for the Prime Minister. Regarding the parameters of the loan for GEBE for the generators. What is the plan behind it? I know he shared a brief bit about it yesterday in the meeting that we had, but many of my same questions from that meeting remain, as you know, and we're awaiting those answers in writing, but I just want to know what is the concept behind it, what happens in case of disaster to that concept, and also looking down the road from GEBE and from the fact that, as the Minister of Finance highlighted, our debt position is growing and we need to manage it carefully. What is the plan then as well from government when it comes to TELEM? And GB. Well, yeah, GB, but also looking at GB, also looking down the road further to TELEM and indeed any other type of issue or catastrophe that may befall us. And then for the Minister of Finance, the status of the tax reform legislation that Parliament was informed about by the previous government. I was told that it was, I don't know if it was at the Council of Advisors yet, or if it is there, what is the update on that? Because that continues to be a recurring issue, something signaled and highlighted by the CFT as well, to improve our tax compliance and indeed our entire tax regime, so that we can, as the Minister said, find ways to generate revenue for the country. And what is government's outstanding debt to SZV and our outstanding debt to APS as well, considering those debt positions. And I guess for the Minister of TEAT, the status of the proposed Airbnb tax, because we hear again the tourist tax coming back, but in the past it has been shared by our private sector, small and large hoteliers, that stakeholders have resisted the implementation of such a tax. This is not an unknown thing. Most times, airlines and cruise lines will say that they are not in favor of such a tax unless it is directly reinvested into the tourism product. So I'm assuming that it's going to face the same resistance now under this government that it did under the previous. So what is the status of the discussions then to have that Airbnb, the other housing platforms and such, to have them also pay their fair share into the tax coffers? And for now, that's it for me, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Gumbs. I see MP Otley requesting the floor. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good day to the Honorable Minister of Finance, her support staff. Thank you for your presentation. I'll dive right into it. I have a question related to VSR. Looking at post 43476, a cut was made of 300,000 guilders for legal and other expertise. Originally, this establishment was for the ambulance legislation to further regulate the department and night hours. The department has requested and urged for such to be looked into for many years. So it's a bit of a shame to see that it's cut, but I would like to know from the relevant minister, why was this cut? Is it no longer seen as a priority? Also, we noticed that there are some significant cuts in community development, family humanitarian affairs. Budget post 43489. These projects and activities were cut. We had 300,000 in projects and activities and 84,000 for third parties. Now, bear in mind why we may say there is 3 more months in 2024. The 2025 budget still has to come, and as you can see, our 2025 budget 24 budget came in March and still needs to go through the process and being approved. So let us not just make cuts viewing the fact that there's 3 more months left. Community development is very important to the progress of community family development. This was one of the biggest reasons for the success in VSR, and I hope that this department will not be neglected. Also, referring back to the ambulance, in the Tulik thing on page 89, the original amount still states 150,000. So that means that someone did not correctly review. And I noticed there's a lot of discrepancies with the Tulik thing and the budget, by the way. As we go to VSA, I would also said, while everyone was taking pictures and very happy of the beautiful job fair that was had, I was also informed that this was not budgeted further. This would probably be the last one. This is important. It showed 2 different things, that the government taking an initiative, and also the sad part, that we see the outpour for employment. This was something that I really, really look forward to, really champion during my time, and it'll be a shame to see that something that is deemed a success does not continue. Should not only be a success for pictures. I move to Vrami. Can you clarify specifically what was taken out of the capital expenditures for Vrami? What was taken out in order for, because on the listing of the capital expenditures, I do not see specifically the 75 million. I just see 31 million added to Vrami. But when I do look in the detail, I do see the 75 million. So in order for that to work, something had to come out. One of the things I do notice that is out and placed on a wish list, because we can say Yes, it'll be 2025 capital expenditures, but we have no guarantee. Because before this capital expenditure, we have not received capital expenditures for umpteen years, a good amount of years. So it's not guaranteed. But I see the phase 1 for the K-Bay project taken out. Now, I don't know if the priorities of anyone, but this is a problem that has been going on for many, many, many years. K-Bay, Dutch Quarter, these places often feel neglected. So to take this project out, doesn't sit well with me. There's other substantial cuts that I see that I'll go through per ministry, but I wanted to touch directly on that K-Bay project for it to be taken out and put on a wish list, because I don't want it to be proposed or sold as if 2025 CapEx is guaranteed, because it's not. We move to TIAT. We speak of the tourist tax. I would like to know, is it the intention of the government to continue the process? Indeed, there was no said, so I understand the minister's reasoning for removing it. We still have to go through the process, so more than likely, 100% it won't be for 2024 budget, understood. We see the vending villages. There's a reduction by 200,000. When the minister was here, she said there were no increases or decreases, but she also withdrew that statement and asked for a period of a week or two to give us answers. Now we see in the budget there is a significant reduction. Also, what bothers me is the reduction in online marketing, online agencies, and also the beautification process, the improvement, the product development. There's a cut in product development and online agencies that bothers me, because we have the FCCA coming here in a couple of weeks, and we speak of product development, but that was one of the main key points, through you, Madam Chair, one of the main key points when I attended the FCCA that was brought forward. When asked about the survey as to why tourists do not return to St. Martin, the number one reason was 1, traffic, 2, there was no new attraction, and 3, of course, they found that the place was not clean compared to other countries. We have to start to put these little things in progress. So what may seem small can affect our tourist product. And the reason I say this, Madam Chair, through you, is I hear the Minister of Finance speak of revenue generating. I do not see revenue generating products here in the budget. I don't see it. But as a Minister of Finance, you generate revenue through taxations. If there's another way, I'd like for the Minister of Finance to explain how she plans to, through you, the Honorable Minister of Finance, plans to generate revenue other than taxation. Because I know TIAT is very much responsible for revenue generations. So we have to be very careful on what we cut and how we cut. I would also like to know specifically, what is the cost, or was the cost, of the Causeway Bridge loan? I need to know the amount for the Causeway Bridge loan. I need to know what is the balance on this loan and how much years remain for this loan. For the Ministry of Finance, I would also like to know, have an overall on the tax received from 2019 to present, be it profit tax, TOT, income tax, wage tax. I would also like to know the amount of registered businesses, particularly sole proprietors. Does the government have a tax reform plan or vision? If so, I would like this to be shared with the members of Parliament. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to specifically ask the Minister of Finance, are you in agreement with a reduction of profit tax? And if so, what is your desired amount? And my colleague remind me, transaction tax. I was saving some of the good stuff for you. I see that there's an error on page 46, well, in the English version. It could be in the translation, because I see in the budget, it mentions a funds for tax reform bill. Is the bill already drafted? If so, can you provide this detailed amendment? GEBE. We see here 75,600,000 being requested for 3 generators. My thing and my question is, was there a bid carried out? You're asking government now to approve 75 million. So based on the corporate governance, definitely a bid needs to be carried out. When I hear a question being asked about a generator, I keep hearing confidential. And before, it could have changed. I remember specifically said there was no bid. It was often said that GEBE would acquire the cost, but this is definitely not the case. I would like to know what is the financial position of GEBE at this moment that we, the government of St. Martin, has to invest 75.6 million guilders for GEBE. What is GEBE's burn rate? You see, in the beginning, I was a proponent of us finding ways within the CAPEX to support GEBE until we had various meetings where it keep being repeated that GEBE would absorb the cost. GEBE could afford the generators. There will be no cost referred or relayed to the people of St. Martin. Once we speak of the budget of St. Martin, we speak of the taxpayers' money, because CAPEX, to my recollection, is a loan. We move to general affairs. Does the Prime Minister support the SAHA as is? Very, very important. Does the government have any plans for new revenue generating measures? As I mentioned, it's very important. Does this amendment include securing of financing to start anything new as it relates to drafting new legislation for revenue-generating measures? With the severe cuts in personnel costs, how will the government increase productivity, taken directly from the two lifting? The hard-working staff of the Ministry of Education writes, and I quote from page 79, "The delays in hiring new staff and lack of senior policy officers are negatively impacting the department's productivity level." Now, this probably was a cry. I won't say start now, but it is a cry. So the decrease in personnel staff negatively affects the government apparatus. I hear the Minister of Finance also speaks about revenue generating projections through RUMI, through something with lease land or hotels, correct me if I'm wrong. And that shows the importance of RUMI, importance of getting permits out, importance of getting building permits out and moving. But taken from page 120, from the staff of RUMI, the years of staff shortages has led to overload in the existing staff. So we hear the cry of the civil servants saying we do not have enough personnel. Now today we see a cut in the personnel. Justice. I see in the CAPEX there's a cut for police force country St. Martin, 1,004,000. The prison remains the same. Immigration services, there's a cut of 326,713. National detectives, there's a cut of 175,000. National detectives, again, we speak of, there's a item line 01120, 1.3 million is deducted. So we are seeing now the police, national detective, immigration, all of these services, what has basically lagged behind for many years, no fault of the persons, but due to budgetary constraints. And now we are finally receiving CapEx where we can invest into the members of justice. We are seeing cuts. So I would like to know what is the reason for these cuts and how will we supplement these cuts to the minister, the relevant minister. Also, I would like to know specifically, what is the amount needed to pay the justice workers with these LBAs being signed? I am extremely happy that to see LBAs being signed, but they come with a cost. What is the amount, the total amount? And with LBAs being signed means personnel goes into new positions, higher positions. So what is the monthly increase and the yearly increase? And how do we plan on maintaining this increase? While we're making personnel cuts for the Ministry of Justice, for years there have been a cry, and according to, help me, I look to the lawyer next to me, international standards, we are in a deficit of police officers, extreme deficit of police officers, 50% deficit of police officers, which means that we are in a dire need of hiring. To the Minister of Justice, Honorable Minister of Justice, what is the plan to encourage police officers? But this will also be an increase in personnel. Also to the Honorable Minister or the Honorable Council of Ministers, through you, Madam Chair, I would like to know what is, or is there a plan for the monthly payment OZR? You see, we realized that there was an issue with SZV, and there was an increase by 1 point something million. I don't hear or see any increase in the amendment. I didn't really get any plans for SZV, which means if SZV collapse, our healthcare system collapse. See, Madam Chair, while we are happy and we celebrate the Enya passing, I would like to say for Omar E.C. Otley, it was never about Curacau's improvement. I felt that we were being placed in a situation to save Curacao. And Curacao will always choose itself first. And I think it was time that we chose ourselves. And I say this because the same problem is right around the corner for SZV. But yet in the budget amendment, I see nothing to supplement this. Over 30 to 40,000 pensioners, and I see nothing to supplement this. When we, the government of St. Martin, owe SZV over 200 million. It's time for we to really start to look into how we're going to save we, Madam Chair. That is what my vote was about. Something that I noticed, a bit disheartening. I look to my left at my colleague over there, MP Gumbs, but eventually. I noticed a decrease of 13.1 million in education. 13.1 million. Our most important investment, education. I look forward to explanation on this. A real good explanation, Madam Chair. I noticed that in the budget, we have 75.6 million for GEBE, but in the two listing, it's asking for Parliament to approve and give the Prime Minister authority to enter into a contract with GEBE where the details have not even been drafted out. See, one thing I learned from the Enya saga, and it was very clearly stated here, while the loan agreement came to Parliament, Madam Chair, the details of the loan agreement did not. Hence, even though some of us in this Parliament, I wasn't here at the time in Parliament, I was in COM, but some members in Parliament may have voted for the approval of this loan agreement. Today we ended up in a bind where there was something that linked us negatively to an increase in rates in the detailing. Hence the reason yesterday in the meeting I second my colleague MP Lacruz in asking for every bit of detail concerning the 75 million. Because what I don't want, Madam Chair, is us to depend on GEBE to pay us back. And when GEBE can't, we're in a quagmire because they're going to present, hey, government, if we pay you this year or pay you this amount, we will go belly up. Then what? We are expecting, I see that there's an expectation of a 1.5 million increase in GEBE's dividends. It's extremely positive. Because from what I see, I have no doubt that we'll go up. But normal, everyday life, you go down before you rise. And GEBE is in a building process. So to have budgeted an increased dividend, it's a bit skeptical to me. I would like to see, before, Madam Chair, the public meeting, a contract drafted out in detail on what the government or how the government plans to negotiate this repayment with GEBE. There's a lot of other things I think that definitely, Madam Chair, we could look at and why GEBE is viewed as a crisis, putting 75 million into GEBE when the generators are up and running. Our people of St. Martin will still be without light because we can't afford it. Because we got a petition today from a citizen of St. Martin pertaining to the fuel costs. We have, well, I'll wait till I get the answer on the amount that is owed to the justice workers to continue that saga. Madam Chair, I'll leave it at this for right now. If I have any other questions for the Honorable Minister of Finance or the COM, I will definitely speak again. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Otley. I give the floor to MP Ludmila de Weaver.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Lady, sorry, I just wanted to complete the questions related to the budgeted vacancies. For TEAT, it's just to, if I could get an explanation, please, of why the budgeted personnel for the current year shifted from 185 to 183 persons, but the associated costs for that, which is about 1.7 million, are like how to explain the 1.7 million cost when we have a change of 2 personnel. That's the expectation that is out of line for me with what I'm expected, because then it's saying that 2 persons, a decrease in 2 persons is equal to 1.7 million in personnel costs. So if I can explain that as well too, please. But then also, if we're looking at budgeted vacancies for the current year, the count went from, well, it went down from 11 persons in this amended budget from 17 in the prior year, with a decrease of about 1 million. So it's just to get an overall understanding for this one, like the others, of if there is a change in the vacancies and the associated salaries with those vacancies. The last one, which I omitted, was the Ministry of ROMI. The budgeted cost, the budgeted vacancies for the current year for the Ministry of ROMI are now 8 in this amended budget, and it changed from 1 in the budget that was approved in March. But this year's budget, the personnel vacancies cost of 8 persons is 28,000 guilders versus 44,000 guilders for 1 employee. So it doesn't make sense unless the 8 employees are getting paid somewhere around maybe less than 3,000 guilders a year in total. Same thing a little bit for the budgeted personnel costs for the current year. It's 112 this year, in this amended budget, sorry, versus 108 in the approved March budget. but the costs went down. So the total budgeted personnel costs are now 8.7 million versus 9.4 million with less employees. Again, I would like an explanation of why we have a decrease in, a decrease in costs, a decrease in salaries that don't really match with what the vacancies would be. So it means that I need to have a little bit more information on the type of vacancies that are there, because what I want to avoid is that we are sort of like, playing around with numbers so that we could match the decrease, because I think it is important that we can substantiate that 12 million decrease with actual items that we need to make this realistic, because it wasn't realistic to me in the beginning, which is why in the budget debate months ago, I asked a lot of questions about personnel. And then as a last note, what I would like to also remind is that I remember in the previous budget discussion, we talked about woven formatsi, so persons that are needed, that are not in the function book, or persons that are that are hired or working that are not in the function book. So taking all of that into consideration, if this makes sense in the amended budget. Thank you.
Thank you, MP De Wever. I see MP Otley would like to add questions or comments. MP Otley, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair. It would be remiss to me to also point out in VRUMI, there's a minus 18.2 million taken out of the CapEx for land purchasing. Now, while we have a GB crisis, we also have a housing crisis. Very important, I see that taken out. So I would like to know, most importantly, the ministry's position on the cuts made. And it's life, huh? We have to make cuts in life. But I would like to know the ministry's positions on the cuts made, specifically the minister and the SG of each department on the cuts made, especially in the justice sector, his feelings on that. I also noticed that subsidies are taken out for TEAT. And then again, we speak on tax generation, revenue generating. No budget, there for certain subsidies that can increase or bring attraction to the country. And last but not least, I would like for each ministry, a copy, the name of all the consultants hired by each minister. I would like to know the contractual pricing for each consultant hired by each minister, and how many cabinet staff are in each cabinet. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Otley. Are there at this time no further questions for the minister? Yes, there are, and we have MP Durand up next. MP Durand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon to my colleagues, to you, Madam Chair, support staff, the Minister of Finance, her support staff, and a special good afternoon to the people of St. Martin. Madam Chair, I'll delve right into the questions through you. I know that a couple months ago, while leaving office, there was a situation whereas funeral arrangements were made for a staff member, an active staff member, and I signed off on it before leaving. And there was a bit of a controversy in the sense of it was stopped, who stopped it, and so forth. That's neither here nor there because the situation has passed. However, I would like to know if the minister, along with the government, can consider now for us to structurally put something else in place, because I know that they cover a certain percentage, but for active civil servants, if we can at least cover 13,000 guilders for their funeral costs. The reasons why I say that, Madam Chair, is because at the end of the day, we depend on these individuals, the civil servants, to go above and beyond for us for a compensation that you cannot compare to the private sector, so to speak. And I believe that it is only fair for us to at least, in honoring their legacy, once they are able to work and support the government for however amount of years, that we can consider putting a structured policy in place where we cover their funeral costs. I would like to know how open the Minister of Finance and the government is for something like this, because I believe that it is not something that is, how you say, a bizarre request, because it's very unlikely that a civil servant passes away during active duty. It is possible because it has happened before, and I do think that this is a way to show appreciation to our men and women that wake up every day and decide to hold public office in whatever capacity without any discrimination as to their function. I would also like to know, through you, Madam Chair, because I know that there are several housing project initiatives that I initiated under different mixes, so to speak, but I'd like to zoom in on the one particular that is being handled via the trust fund. I know that there was discussion about it being halted, it started back, etc. I realize that for the last couple of months, they're very quiet on it. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, what is the update on the housing project that is earmarked for the Hope Estate? We were able to secure the property, so I would like to know if there's any update on that from the government with respect to that housing project. We know that there's a dire need for housing here in St. Martin, especially social housing, so I'd like to get an update on that. Madam Chair, through you, there's also another concern that I've had over the last couple of years that I brought up in different forms of fashion, but I've never seen it materialize. Through you to the Minister, well, I will almost have to look back to the Minister of Justice, but to the Ministry of Justice, I would like to know how open the government is for allowing not only ex-police officers, but let's say ex-uniform officers that have the permission to carry firearms while executing their duty, and they are retired, that they're allowed to have the firearm for 5 years. The reason why I ask that, Madam Chair, is because just to use the example of a police officer, they serve for 30, 40 years in certain instances, create enemies across lines, and then when they retire, you're telling them to just go home and fend for themselves. I would like to know if a special budget can be allocated for that. Again, like I say, it's not as if 50 or 30, 40 officers are going on retirement at one time. If a structure can be put in place to be able to allow them to be able to have a firearm in order to protect themselves once they retire. I move on, Madam Chair, to the Ministry of VROMI, through you. I am finally, and I'm glad, and I must commend the ministry, that I'm seeing the road works, the main road project actually had a kickoff a couple days ago, although very late in my humble opinion, because these documents were signed by my person before even leaving. But nevertheless, we're here now. I saw that it started in Point Blanche, and I hope that maybe a structured schedule can be published as to where's next. We fought tooth and nail as a former government to secure these funds for the capital expenditure, and I would like to just get a clear detail as to the road of priorities. One of the roads that I put a lot of emphasis on over the last couple of years is the road, Arch Road, so to speak, connecting to Madam Estate. That road is in one of the most deplorable, is one of our most deplorable roads on the island, and I hope that that has not been taken off the priority list. I do remember, however, and this is a question through you, Madam Chair, that back in the days, an agreement was made with the government, I think it was in 2013 or 14, when the Causeway project, that the port would pave Union Road. I don't think that that ever materialized. And then we shifted the agreement to have the port contribute to paving of the road in Point Blanche. Now I see that the government is paying to do the road in Point Blanche, but I didn't hear anything about the agreement that was made. Maybe it is the case that the port is collaborating, but I would like some clarity on that if it is the case. And if not, how then will the port contribute to our infrastructure, as was the agreement made back in 2013, if I'm not mistaken, to contribute towards Union Road, because we paved Union Road as government. I also saw the side road project decrease in terms of its speed to a certain extent, but I saw over the last 2 weeks it kicked back up. I would like to know, Madam Chair, through you to the ministry, if the planning change in terms of the format and how the roads are being executed, and if not, if yes, can calendar be provided, because I've gotten questions, because over the last couple of months, I mentioned certain roads in the Cold Bay area that would be fixed. And I'm also receiving questions from our constituents basically asking when will the road start. So I think one of the ways that the government can be clear, through you, Madam Chair, to the government, if they can provide a detailed planning as to which roads are next. And of course, I know that plannings can change once executing works, but at least that the public could have a kind of an idea when their road is up, because now they're seeing things happening and not hearing anything is leaving a lot of room for interpretation. Madam Chair, I was hearing the minister during the presentation with respect to long lease land being allocated and making more money via hotels and so forth. I would like if some clarity can be put into that, please, Madam Chair, so that I can confirm if we're speaking about the same thing. Because if it is the case, then I believe that the government continues to run over or ring around the rosy with this particular subject matter. But I don't want to assume. I just would like if the minister, through you, Madam Chair, could provide some clarity so that I'll be able to expound on it if indeed it is, the minister is talking about the same project that I'm talking about. My next question to the Minister of Rummy, through you, Madam Chair, is the 18 million regarding the sewage network that I saw via the NRPB. I would just like to confirm, because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, that we had put aside via the CapEx 15 million guilders on a multi-annual approach, which would have been for 3 years, so 2024, 2025, and 2026, which would total to about 45 million guilders. I would like to understand through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister, if this 18 million guilders is separate from this, or has the 15 million guilders for 3 years, has that been scrapped and replaced with this? Or is it separate from the regular country budget with respect to the CapEx? Also, one of the points that I want to also bring up, Madam Chair, is that, you know, once sitting in the seat as government, we have to be creative in terms of how we're going to generate revenue. There's never a popular decision in terms of trying to put things that burden our people more. So we try to be creative in how we handle certain things. The depth for SZV, which we hear a lot of discussion, even one of the previous MPs spoke about it. We came up with an idea, Madam Chair, to lease SZV a piece of land. They then paid 60 years in advance, and that would come off of what they owe, of what we owe them as a government. Now, I would like to know, Madam Chair, what are some creative ways per ministry that is being implemented in order to generate revenue? Because right now we're just talking about cut, but I'm missing the sense of creativity when it comes to ways and means that we could generate revenue and minimize the burden on our people. And the reason why I brought that up, it leads into the next point, Madam Chair. We, under the past government, myself and the Minister of Finance at the time, we started a task force collection, whereas we collected most, you would say, from big businesses that refused to pay long lease in over some cases even 25, 26 years. We were able to generate millions where that is concerned. I know that the first order of the day, when the new government went in, they discontinued the task force, saying that they can handle it on their own. But at the same time, I know that the task of the Domain Affairs Department was very heavy, and that there was a personnel shortage there as well. So I would like to know, through you, Madam Chair, to the Honorable Minister, how much money has been generated from people that owe outstanding for many years, without even testing or using the historical facts over the last year and a half to 2 years where the task force was in place. What was the main reason for discontinuing it? Just because a previous government started it? That was something that I would like some clarity on, through you, Madam Chair. And lastly, I would like to bring up a point that was brought forth in the INYA meeting, where, through you, Madam Chair, the Honorable Minister of Finance brought some points as to, you know, don't quote me on the numbers, but 30 million owed and will be expired in 2026, and 90 million from this year to that year. And what I find quite interesting is that every time I would assume that reference had to be made to the Democratic Party, it would use the Netherlands Antilles, but when it was the NA, it was the NA and the UP. That's politics, however, but I just want to make one slight correction. With respect that a loan that was taken out in 2014, the minister mentioned that it was under the NA government, but NA was not in government in 2014. So I would like some clarity as to who took that loan and some real clarity as based on the party who led government, how those loans managed, and how much do we owe for the next, how much do we owe in terms of what is open at this point, and who took out those loans based on the government that was leading at that time. For now, Madam Chair, I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to the responses. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Durand. The next speaker is MP Lacruz. MP Lacruz, you have the floor.
A blessed afternoon, Madam Chair Lady, our acting griffier, Minister and your support staff, those in the Tribune, my fellow colleagues, Member of Parliaments, and those watching on all the social media outside. Madam Chair Lady, everyone chose to end with their statement about INEA. I'd like to start with mine and just simply letting through you, Madam Chair Lady, the Minister of Finance know that I was elected here to Parliament to vote my conscience, and I will continue to do so, no matter what anyone thinks. The mere fact that Curaçao passed their I say, amendment was up to them, because I clearly remember that the minister told us that the amendments were in Curaçao, and when she got them back, we will receive them. So I didn't expect Curaçao not to agree with them. And maybe the minister could correct me, and we could go back on the videos and check if that was true. Madam Chair Lady, looking through the budget, I have a lot of questions. I'm going to send those questions in writing to the minister. I'm going to make a general statement, and I'm going to explain to the minister what I mean with the statement by using an example. And then by every point, the minister would be able to give me a reply on what actually took place there. And I'm going to pick an example from the Ministry of TIAT, where the tourism marketing initiatives went from 2.5 million to 2.4 million. What I'd like to know and what I've not seen in the budget, what was taken away? So for example, let's say that the ministry had plans to do marketing in the Caribbean and also in Guyana. And they now decided we're going to ask the company that is doing the marketing in Guyana, in the Caribbean, to also do marketing in Guyana. That caused the price to go down because we didn't need a separate company to do that. That's what I'd like to see with all the points that I'm going to send to the minister, so I could understand what was actually taken away, because it is extremely important. When I think about business, and I think government is a business, if you don't take care of your people, you will get no work done. The jobs and the positions that were budgeted for in the beginning were positions that are needed. And if they were taken away, and I do understand that if it was budgeted for the year, and we are now in September, October. So that amount was taken away. But are the jobs still available? Where and how have we been recruiting? What jobs are missing? Where have we been looking? Because I still get a lot of emails and CVs, people asking, looking for jobs. So that is extremely important to know. Madam Chair Lady, I've heard other members of Parliament ask, what are the ideas that every ministry has to increase to the coffers of government? I would like to suggest something else. I would like to suggest that one day, sits closed door meeting with the members of Parliament, and let's brainstorm. Let's have dialogue as the representatives of St. Martin and come up with ideas where we would know right away, hey, this can work, this can't work, what is needed, where does COM need the members of Parliament, and where the members of Parliament, how the members of Parliament could assist COM. Because the only way we're going to reach anywhere is by doing it together. So my whole idea is not here to sit and bash the government's cuts, but I want to understand how and why these cuts were made. Madam Chair Lady, we're asking civil servants to do more work, to produce the same amount of work. I've not seen anywhere in the budget where and how they're going to be compensated for this. So what I would have suggested, for example, if we cut down because we didn't hire people, let's give them something extra because they have been doing the work. Let's find a way to get that done. Again, this is not playing politics. This is making sure that once you are taking care of your ministers, your ministry, the civil servants, they're going to take care of you and work harder for you, which will be a benefit to the country and the country alone. With a simple nod, Madam Chair Lady, I would like to just understand if the minister understood, and then that will be all, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacruz. I look for the next MP who wishes to speak, and I see that MP Irion is up next. MP Irion, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to the Secretary General. Good afternoon to my members, the members of Parliament, the Minister of Finance and her support staff, those in Tribune and the viewing public. Madam Chair, I realize when it comes to some of my questions, the Minister of Finance gets a little extra spicy in comparison to maybe the other MPs, but that's exactly how I love my food. Madam Chair, I would also like to say that according to, like the other MPs mentioned, yes, I also was elected, not appointed, and in the last 8 years, I've always voted my conscience in Parliament, and never had to regret any decision that I have made. And now I'll continue the questions posed for the budget. When we look at the budget, Madam Chair, and because the Prime Minister was here yesterday, and we, as members of Parliament, maybe the coalition ministers knew, but we were told during the orientation week by one of the presenters that there was this loan for GB in the budget. And I was surprised because outside entities knew of this, but not even the coalition MPs, or they looked surprised at the same time during the orientation meeting, that they themselves didn't know. When we look at the budget, it says in the toelichting in 2.6, it says that the GB is looking for a loan of $30 million. In the presentation from the minister, it says that there's a loan for $75.6 million. So I would like to confirm, is it $30 million for the loan or the $42 million? Or is it that we are taking out a loan for GB And GB is also looking for an additional $30 million. You can look for it on page 154 in the toelichting. In that same toelichting, it mentioned that GB commits to delivering audits for the fiscal years up and including 2022 and 2024. And I wonder if that deadline has been set for that. And what happens if GB does not deliver these audits, Madam Chair? What is the consequences for GB if they do not deliver these audits? Also, I see from, and these are some of the questions also posed by the Legal Affairs Department, and I don't see them answered. Who exactly is taking out the loan? Is it under the Ministry of Rummy or General Affairs? It also states about the start and end date. Does this mean that the agreement between GB and the government begins on November 1st, 2024? Or does it mean that GB will begin making the monthly payments from November 2024? It also, the Prime Minister, Madam Chair, mentioned, and I believe in the presentation from the Minister of Finance, I stand to be corrected, it was mentioned that we will take out a loan and then lease it to GB. So one confirmation, are we leasing it to GB, or are we taking a loan for GB and allowing GB then to purchase the engines? Because that's two different things. So is government taking a loan, buying the engines, because that's what the Prime Minister basically said yesterday, and then leasing the engines to GB? Or are we doing a similar situation like what we did when we were there with the airport, where we got financing and basically gave the loan to the airport? So which one is it? Are we leasing it? It was said leasing yesterday, and I believe also today. Which one is it? And now, if we are leasing it, that means the asset goes by us. The asset should then be reflected by us. I don't see anywhere in the budget where the insurance for the engines are, or where it would come from. So I don't see the insurance for the asset that we're leasing covered in the budget. Can this be made clear to me? Where is this insurance taken up? What is the potential cost for us of insuring these engines? If it's going to be loaned to GB, like what we did with the airport, would be considered a similar system as the reflows. So then what interest rate then are we expecting then? With the airport, the government is getting money back, the reflows. So if we're going to loan to GB and say at 5%, are we then loaning, and let's say we get a loan at 4%, 5%, are we then loaning this to GB at 6% and making a gain? Madam Chair, when we were doing the airport refinancing, we looked at different options. I would like to know from the government, were there no co-financing options available? Were there no co-financing options available? Were there no public-private partnerships available? In between 2022 and 2023, when I was minister, then MP Martin kept insisting on a specialist financier, Mr. Medema. I think I forwarded to, it's actually in Parliament. I've asked this question before to you, Minister of Finance. I would like an update on this. The MP, it can't be for me that as a member of Parliament, you had all the solutions. You were able to come up with a concept to be able to refinance our COVID loans, but now you have the opportunity to execute this, and now the idea is gone. So my question is, have you had a discussion with Mr. Medema? Have you had a discussion with Mr. Blackman? Have you had a discussion with the Minister of TIAT concerning the refinancing of our COVID loans? And Mr. Medema, that question also goes to the current Minister of TIAT. Is she taking up her own idea and own concept of this? Also during this period of time, the transaction tax. In nowhere in the budget I see any preparation for the transaction tax. Nowhere where it's budgeted, it's not in the toelichting. So is that no longer the almighty Hail Mary savior for us when it comes to generating revenues. Because what we see in the budget now is cuts, 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 yes. But when it comes to money making, generating revenues, all the great ideas for the last 4 years just disappear. We had so many great ideas, but now we see none reflected from the MPs that went into ministry to be able to execute. I saw in a paper, in a local paper a few weeks ago, that the government lost the court case for the tax system. What I also recognize is that the government did not appeal, which is very, very interesting. So there was a court case for tax system. We had the opportunity to appeal. We did not appeal, but yet the next day brought out an article saying that we withdraw everything. Yes, it was part of the judgment, but we had the opportunity to appeal. So what is the impact now on our tax systems? Because we have a lot of questions today about money generating and tax legislation, but if we're going to have another delay of 2 to 4 years on the tax system, where are we now? What is the current plans? And what is Bezeka saying on this in terms of Ontario on the money now basically lost? Are we starting now from scratch? What is the steps or the plans going forward? I also want some confirmation if Bearing Point has any staff, former staff now currently doing any projects in the tax office. Because I think that'll be a perfect link with the reason why we didn't appeal the court case, because we know what the next steps are already. As I mentioned, what is the impact of the funds from Ontario given this project? I also see in the budget that we have a surplus, but this surplus is mainly due to the unspent monies from the Ontario funds, actually. So it's not based on money that we generate. We have a surplus because we didn't spend money. So, and then I look at the multi-annual years, and I look at budget 2025. So I want confirmation that in the multi-annual, in particular 2025, to confirm that any surplus there does not include the Ontario money. So that means if we minus the Ontario funds for 2024, any surplus that we have for 2025 is all monies generated from us. And if that's the case, what is that then? What project that we have there that we see in the next few months that's going to generate that money that we miss from the Ontario surplus? As I mentioned before, the budget has a lot of cuts, but very little revenue generating, and there were a lot of projects that we already started that could have potentially generated revenue for this budget. So we have, for example, a project that started for the parking lot across from the old post office, where I think most of the system was already there in place. It was almost ready for us to go, but we left government. So where's that project now? It was a simple project where we would put a boom and have a payment system. The company was already identified. So where's that system now? So this budget actually has a lot more potential to generate revenue. We could have actually cut a lot less, especially at education, because yes, you guys have been there from May. We had enough months to be able to generate revenue to add to this budget. So where's that project now with the boom system? And why isn't that looked into? Again, MP Lacruz mentioned that also. We're not here just to bash the budget. I think that we have to live in St. Martin. I live here also. We want to actually see things progress, and not that every single thing is stopped that the former government brought forward. The former minister, or then former acting minister of TIAT MP, now current MP Otley, when I was there also, I emphasized to him on the issue of lottery booths and the regulation of lottery booths. And we worked, and he took it up and started a policy, or I believe maybe it was even legislation, to ensure that lottery booths pay their fair share. Where is that now? I don't see it reflected in the budget. I don't see any, again, in the toelichting. So I'm looking not just in the budget and the figures, but also in the toelichting on, hey, part of our future revenue generation is this project, and we starting with this amount of money. It's not in the toelichting, so I'm assuming it's not budgeted. Where, and I asked the same question that I asked at that point in time, every lottery booth that we have now, are they legal? Are they legally established? Every single lottery booth, is it legally established? How many lottery booths do we have on the island? And if we establish a legal basis for lottery booths, how much money would they generate? Another item that was brought forward by the Ministry of TIAT was the inspection fees. The legislation was very, very outdated, and the process, I believe, again, was pretty far. I'm not too sure because I was not the Ministry of TIAT, but can we get an update on that? Has that process also been stopped, the inspection fees? Because we haven't gotten any update on that. And is this government plan to continue with that? We started a process on collecting of the backlogs of casinos. What was collected up to date, so since May, and how many of them are up to date with their backlog and remaining current, and how many are not up to date with their backlog and remaining current. And what is being done to enforce this collection? MP Durand mentioned the dismantling of the task force in Vrummy. This task force brought a lot of money in a short period of time, and it was stated by the Minister of Vrummy that he didn't see the sense in it anymore, and the Department of Domain will now take over that. So what I would like to know is, since the department took over that responsibility from the task force, how much money has the department collected since then? And in particular, to the 10 biggest offenders. So I would like to know, what are the top 10 biggest offenders in the Ministry of Vrummy when it comes to domain, itemized, and how much has been collected from those top 10 from domain? And how much years do they owe? The government also came out and said that they are not doing the selling of Benin shares. I think that's a missed opportunity. I believe that the shares would have been able to bring relief to the persons, the citizens affected by GB today. And I want to be very, very clear on the process that we had, because it wasn't that we alone wanted Benin shares to be sold. Benin themselves wanted to sell shares, so government would have generated money to be able to put anywhere. And I want to be clear also. So in terms of Benin shares, our concept that we had was that a portion of those shares will be going to the staff of Benin. All shares will be sold to local entities like APS, and a portion of those shares will be sold to the general public, which means that instead of taking out a loan at 5% and 6%, the public would be able to participate and invest in Benin and be able to collect a dividend over the next how many years. So I think, again, is a missed opportunity, and an opportunity that would have allowed locals, Samaritanos, to be able to have something to invest in. There's not much opportunities for us to invest. Persons buy cars, which is not necessarily an asset. Going into real estate is expensive. We don't have access to trading facilities like in the US. So allowing locals to be able to collect dividends on a local entity, I believe, is a very, very big missed opportunity. But I believe that, seeing how things are going, we'll be back there very, 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 very soon. Madam Chair, I also requested a meeting, I believe in June or July, regarding some tax legislation that we brought, or that I brought as Minister of Finance, I believe in November. and possibly even October. I haven't gotten an update on those meetings, but I would like to know, one of those were regarding inheritance tax, among others. Inheritance tax, tax holidays, a variety of them. Some are already here, actually, including the banking law. I would like to know the position of the Minister of Finance on these legislations. Is this something that you still see yourself in, the ones that are at Parliament already? And can we get a timeline on when we could have those meetings, or when you'll be ready to execute those meetings? And I mentioned this also because the minister mentioned that, in particular to Enya, for example, in the first time she came around, that the 4 million dividends from the central bank could have gone to education, justice, civil servants, among others. And we need to start to find ways to generate revenue. We need to be able to find new money. But it's interesting that the first opportunity that the government got to actually generate revenues for the 2024 budget, they actually gave this money away. Because, through you, Madam Chair, this government, when they had the opportunity to collect taxes, they decided to give a tax holiday away. And it's interesting because that was also done as a demissionary government before elections. So are we really trying to generate revenue, or do we want to give money away? And in addition to that, we have a lot of, I would say, hypocrisy, because we have entities, we have MPs in here that talk about no more Kupo. The former minister of Rummy was bashed severely for focusing on construction, focusing on development, focusing on making sure that the one pillar that actually brought us out of the pandemic succeeded. He was heavily criticized, but then parties that are part of this government also supported the same tax holiday, supported the same entity that they complained about during the whole campaign. And no more supporting Kupo, no more supporting the developments, construction parts, but we still support a tax holiday for that same developer. And don't get me wrong, same area, don't get me wrong, it also came to us. And when it came to us, what we said, if you're going to give out any tax holidays, we want it to be done we want something in return. And that social responsibility was ensuring that all schools, or all public schools at least, had solar panels with batteries. It couldn't be that we just give out, and get nothing in return, Madam Chair. Millions of dollars is now, matter of fact, I would like, Madam Chair, to ask a question. What is the potential lost in revenue that we have now by giving out that tax holiday? What is the potential loss in revenue by giving out that tax holiday? We have a school cut. We have the budget cuts for education, ECYS, of 13.1 million guilders. 13.1 million guilders. Couldn't that be filled by the potential revenue lost by the tax holiday? You know what's interesting also? That advice and the energy that was put behind that particular advice was negative. So the energy they put to force the department to try to make it positive, right, was very interesting. But then there's another one that I believe that was also negative, one that actually would be in the benefit of local St. Martiners, that remains negative. That same energy was not put into that one. So, Madam Chair, again, I think it's very hypocritical almost to sit here today and say to the police officers, to the teachers, to the persons at SFV, to the citizens of St. Martin, to say we had to cut so much money because we could not generate funds, but yet still we give out millions of dollars and opportunity ways to collect revenue. That'll be all, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Irion. The next speaker is MP Roseberg. MP Roseberg, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Secretary General, Minister of Finance and Support Staff. Thank you. Blessed day to my colleagues and the public viewing this meeting present here today and those online. I also have a few questions, mostly in regards to justice. My first question is, through you, Madam Chair, for the Minister of Justice, are there any justice workers that received payment already? The second question is, how much percentage-wise, based on the L-base that has been signed, how much is that percentage-wise and how much is still remaining? Third question, the payment that the justice workers are expecting, when can they expect such payment for the ones that didn't object, of course? And has this total amount been budgeted for? And where can I find that? When can the justice workers who have received their LBA expect first payment? Because I also know that certain payments are in tranches, so when can they expect their first payment? How is the Justice Ministry, to you, Madam Chair, ensuring growth and safety while the budget has been cut? My other question is in regard to the crime fund. Based on the law, in regards to the crime fund, it mentions that every year by submitting the budget, the minister needs to submit a beleidsplan, a plan where it specifically mentioned which projects will be tackled in that year, and also the finances in regards to that. I would like to know, through you, Madam Chair, where this plan is and where I can see it on the budget, because I have looked, but I haven't found it, and to also know what the amount is that is in this crime fund, and where the amounts have been going to which projects, because we are at the ending of the year, and I have been looking for the different projects in regards to tackling the crime, especially seeing the rising crime, and yeah, I haven't seen it. Also in regards to the draft legislation, which I have seen the Minister of Justice wrote the article about that, that there is a new draft legislation in the making to tackle the crime fund. So I would like to know how far that draft legislation is and when it can be expected. Seeing that it's currently, at least for me, not clear which projects are currently in the crime fund, I would like to know budget-wise where I can find that, and then especially more so seeing today's newspaper article where I have seen that, through you, Madam Chair, the Minister of Justice have decided, seeing that there is a need of police cars, and there are currently not a lot of police cars available and they need to be purchased, then the Minister has decided, through you, Madam Chair, to purchase police cars through the crime fund. So I would like to know, based on what that decision has been made, and if it was already budgeted for based on the plan and the regulations the law gives the Ministry of Justice. And my follow-up question in regards to that is, what is the reason, through you, Madam Chair, that the Ministry of Justice has decided, although I know that there is a need of police cars and that the crime is on a rise, why wasn't it decided same way as the Ministry of Justice has decided to tackle the holding cells, not to request for assistance through BZK? Why was it decided to tackle or tap into the crime fund? Furthermore, in regards to the holding cells, I'm happy to see that today's newspaper has also shown that the Minister of Justice is actively busy and that the holding cells, which is a very important topic as well, especially seeing that at this moment, the holding cells are not how they should be, and I'm referring to the holding cells not in Point Blanche, of course, but at the police station, Philipsburg, to understand what is currently going on with the repair of those holding cells. How are we making sure that there is no violation in regards to those holding cells and that we will not be op het matje geroepen by the European Court, of course, for violation of the human rights. So what is being done budget-wise to tackle that matter? Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to know where those funds will be coming from. And then those will be my questions for now. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. And I continue with the members of parliament, and I give the floor to MP Meyers. MP Meyers, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Thank you to my colleagues here in the Legislative Hall, to radio listeners, those of you watching my social media, those of you in the Tribune, good afternoon. I just have a few questions for the Honorable Minister of Finance. First of all, allow me to congratulate you on the approval of the ENYA, as we all call the ENYA situation, something you inherited and something I believe that was not it was a direct, the persons or the institution that has to be held accountable is our central bank, not any Minister of Finance. We found ourselves in a quagmire, but the good thing was that through some creative thinking, we were able to assist 3,080 plus local St. Martiners. And I think that is the crux of the matter. It's either you do or you don't. Having said that, I would like to start like on a light note, which I consider a light note. In that very meeting, the leader of our party quoted two quotes, one from Damian Marley, and says the slave mill is running slowly, but it is still running, and another quote, but he gave me the credit for the quote, saying, quote, as the leader of the SAM said, I'll rather die on my feet than live on my knees. That quote was a quote by Emiliano Zapata. So it was not an original quote of mine. I don't want anyone to feel that I'm plagiarizing their quotes. It's not my quote. I just have a few questions for you, Minister. Can you give me to you, Madam Chair, all of the departure taxes from all of the airports in the region, St. Martin, Aruba, Antigua, Anguilla, St. Kitts, Curacao? I will send it to you in writing, Minister. Can you give me the financial position of all government-owned companies? So not only the ones that we know now that are facing challenges, which is Telem in GB, but I want to know about the harbor, the airport, the SZV as well. I would like to know the financial situation of the SZV. What went wrong with the loan that was approved? Because based on what I understand, that there was a loan that was approved some years ago for the purchase of 2 brand new generators for GB, but GB never drew on the loan. Can you explain to me why that loan to the tune of $90 million was never drawn on, and why didn't that happen? how much money does government owe the SZA? And besides that, Madam Chair, I would like to know who was in government when all of those monies were loaned from the SZA to government. Can you give me the cost-cutting the amount of cost-cutting measures that were presented in the 2024 budget that was presented in March? Because I've heard a lot of talk about cost-cutting measures. I want to make sure that those cost-cutting measures, even though we have some now, that there were cost-cutting measures in that budget as well to see. Where do you stand, where were there any cuts in that budget and how much? Can you name the companies that received the tax holiday, the tax holiday that my colleague so eloquently put forward today? Can you tell us who those companies are? And as government, what incentives do we offer to investors, whether local or foreign investors? What incentives that do we offer? Because when we're on one side of when we're on the executive branch, we go to these trade shows, and we say this is why you should invest in St. Martin. And this is what St. Martin has to offer besides sun, sea, and sand. And then we're in the legislative hall, we then say you're giving away everything. So can you tell me what is the incentives that government has? Is there a package that government has that offers to its constituent, to potential investors, whether be it local or foreign? And lastly, one of the things that I think is a looming, I don't want to call it a threat, but of a major concern. Our population is about 60,000. We have a population of 60,000. We have more than 13,000 persons that are over the age of 60 years old. And we have a problem with our cemeteries. Our cemeteries are, I would dare to say, 85 to 90% filled. It's a looming problem, and we have to get ahead of it before it becomes a major crisis, because we will find ourselves in a position having to make the hard decisions. And there's a saying, which I would like to believe is a Frankie Meyers saying, if you do not make the hard decisions when you have to, you'll be forced to make them when you don't want to. Franklin Myers. Those are my questions for you, Madam Chair, for you, Prime Minister, through you, Madam Chair. And I would like to end with one quote by Nelson Mandela, who eloquently said, "Where you stand depends on where you sit." Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Meyers. And I continue without succumbing to the temptation to react to MP Meyers' last phrase or quote, but so I'll give the floor to MP Kotai, but knowing myself, I will. And MP Kotai, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon to all, to the Minister of Finance for being with us here today, those in the Tribune and those viewing online. So I just wanted to bring up one concern that I've been receiving from the population of some of the citizens of St. Martin. There has been news about a beach bar around the Simpson Bay area near the beach side. I would just like some clarity on this. Maybe it would be more directed to the Minister of Romy, because from what I understand, it is not allowed to really build on our beaches. But I would like the Minister to elaborate on what's happening there, And furthermore than that, I have maybe a statement, not really a question. I'm consistently hearing about revenue-generating ideas from our fellow colleague MPs, but they also spent 4 years within government and had plans that did not seem to have any execution. So I would say to give our Minister of Finance some time to come back with our 2025 projections and budget and provide those revenue-generating ideas. And to remind everybody, we are working with a budget that was brought forward by the previous government and being amended by our current government for the next 3 months, not the next year. So that's just my statement, and thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Kotai, and I see MP Lacruz wishes to say or ask questions additionally. You have the floor, MP Lacruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. One of the questions that I forgot to you, Madam Chair Lady, is that I did not see anywhere anything concerning Carnival. The year before, they didn't ask for the money, and then I know that eventually they did because some of the supporters, sponsors pulled back, and government did do some type of payment. I don't know where that is, but I haven't seen that in the budget anywhere reflected. So that is one. And then from the comment from the previous MP, I think that my suggestion for us to gather and come up with ideas was not well taken. So maybe the MP could elaborate a little bit more on that, because I'd like to hear more if he's willing to hear the ideas. You are? Yeah? Didn't sound so, but okay. Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Members, this is not a discussion between you guys at this time. Thank you, MP Lacruz. And I continue with MP Otley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I just have a few more questions. You don't want to turn me on? Okay, we're good to go. Madam Chair, through you, I have a few more questions for the Honorable Minister of Finance or the relative ministers. I also wanted to know about the holding cells in Phillipsburg. There was also an international court case held that states the holding cells are inhumane. Our whole entire prison system is inhumane, but the holding cells, so we speak of UNOPS. Will UNOPS prepare budget for the holding cells in town? I see that the Minister Lewis indeed urges renovation, so that's good. But will money be provided? I don't see anything in the budget that mentions this. So that is also something that we need to look at. We also say that prison is not for animals, for human beings, and we see the best of doctors, lawyers, politicians, you name it, ends up there. So let's not neglect the prison. The cemetery, very important. This has been a cry from even during our tenure to try to find more land space, because one thing that is inevitable is death. And I also see in the explanation in the CAPEX for the same land acquiring that I spoke about for 18.2 million that was taken out, cemetery is also listed in there. So these are things that I say we got to be very careful on what we are doing, because right now there's barely any space. I would like to also inquire through you, Madam Chair, to the Honorable Minister of Finance. I remember when election was called, and it was a big cry by the Prime Minister of St. Martin that he has to go to Washington, D.C. because there's $200 million waiting on him. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Honorable Prime Minister, have you ever seen this $200 million? Is it in our coffers? Was this $200 million ever received from this trip in Washington? Because since then, I have not received any update of this. Also, were you, no, I'll leave it there. I also would like to touch on Same thing I said. We take pictures, we like glory, and we don't follow up. There was an article some time back where MP Roseberg, the Minister of Versailles, and everyone was starting the legal help desk. And this is going to be a project to help communities and push forward. And this is why I often say, and I say we have to look at CDFHA, Community Development Family Humanitarian Affairs. This is very important. What is the update with the legal help desk to the relevant minister through you, Madam Chair? I think this would fall under the Ministry of Versailles. There's a bit of discrepancy, and I could not let this day go without finding out. The Minister of TEAT said that there was an increase in the throughput fee due to the building of the bridge. Yesterday, the Prime Minister clearly stated, and I repeated myself, that the throughput fee was established to pay for the bridge. I need a clear answer on which one is it. In the letter to the CFT dated June 12, 2024, it stated that an injection of 36 million will go into CAPEX or the budget for the prison. Now we see 75.6. Was this updated to the CFT? Not that, for me, I want freedom from the CFT, but it's used when it's convenient. And then I saw the article now that it is increased till 2027. So it's something that we have to deal with and live with. So I see in the letter June 12, it says 36 million to the CFT, but now we have 75. So was there an updated letter sent? If so, can I see it also with the response? As it relates to the EV card system by the Minister of TEAT, that it will start during our high season. This is something actually good that I was championing during my tenure. However, I would say be very careful and refer back to the legislation. The law allows you to not only do it online, but fill in when you reach. So I see that the minister said there'll be no arrivals if you do not do it before, but be very careful, as I would learn during the COVID time that systems and a lot of people miss their flight and cancel their flights because of the ability not to do it online. Please, until the legislation is changed, give it the opportunity to go back to how it used to be. We do online, and if you missed it while you're on the plane, you can get that. It's very important for our tourism product. We also speak of stakeholders, through you, Madam Chair, having issues with the health levy or tourist tax. And I say, look, at some point, ministers, we have to put our foot down and be able to say, at the end of the day, it worked out. I told you so. If we always hide and cower behind negative reviews, we won't go anywhere, because, as I'm pretty sure the Minister of Finance can attest, everything, the blueprint to tourism is Aruba, 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 while I was the Minister of Tourism. And I often say it, and while we lag behind this money-generating product, we see Aruba has implemented it. Why are we always having to see other countries do it for us to feel safe and then say it's okay? And this is not in the point of the government or you, Minister of Finance, through you, Madam Chair. It's in general, us as members of Parliament, because the legislation has to come to Parliament. And it will benefit our people. The people will come. It was said by my previous colleague, what do we have to offer? Suns and beaches? No. There is something about St. Martin. People are going to come. But we have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe that we are going to better the product for people to come. We want them to come. Let us invest in our environmental system. Remove the dump. Let us invest in our traffic. That is why I understand, but I'm still looking for the urgency, because I know phase 1 of the Ring Road was involved in the CAPEX. So we'll be interested to see what will come out, because we have to enhance our brand. And while we're trying to save one product, we need to ensure that we can generate more revenue to receive monies to replace whatever is taken out, or put us in the best position to receive CAPEX 2025. God spare all of our life. Through you, Madam Chair, to the Minister of Finance, I guess you're related to the relevant minister, tell him. I think this just went over everybody's head. The mayor group placed a lien on all receivables of Telem. This is This was scary. However, Telem acted quickly, and I saw within a couple of days, we see in the newspaper that an agreement has been met. I would like to know what was the amount paid. I'm hearing an amount of 3.8 million. What was the amount paid? Who paid this amount? What is the effects on the budget of Telem having to pay this amount? Was the amount to be paid in one shot or installments? And does this affect future salaries or bonuses? Christmas time is around the corner. Our hotel room tax, what is the minister's, through you, Madam Chair, view on the hotel room tax? It's been said we have one of the lowest, if not the lowest, room tax rates in the Caribbean. What is the thought on increasing it? Being competitive, but increasing the amount. I would also like to go back to the tax levy or health levy. We did an entire study within the region. So we did an entire study which shows that St. Martin can be, when we were there, of course, can be comparable to between $15 to $35 per passenger and be competitive, okay? So an entire study was done, and we will not be out of the rate of the Caribbean. I see also in the paper, Minister of Justice was not the only one making front page. Minister of Finance warns merchants to stop imposing purchase limits for cards. Very important. I think everybody listening right now is probably waiting on this answer. I see, and I commend you for taking a stance, but what is in place to penalize violators? What is in place to really and truly ensure that these problems are dealt with, Honorable Minister of Finance? Because it's very, very, disturbing. We too often see everyone, and it's, I guess, business 101, relays the cost of everything. If I go according to the information received from the Prime Minister yesterday, a bridge was built, which all of us use, but a bridge was built, throughput fees in place. This caused trickle-down fuel costs, increase in container fees, increase in supplies, everyday goods, foods, basic cost of living, and everything relates to the consumer. The bills that GEBE is supposed to pay to the harbor, they found a creative way to not pay it from their revenues, being a monopoly, but passing it on to the consumer. When we hear people speaking of their bills, $200 and the fuel clause is double, we realize we have a problem in this country. A basic need, necessity, electricity, food, water. And because of a fuel clause, people cannot afford a basic need. I would have really liked to see an amendment in the budget whereby, I often say this, people don't mind paying for a better product or better service. But to pay to remain the same or worse, or go through hard times, is very hard for us to sell. As it pertains to VSA, I still, when that meeting will come, but I guess I use this opportunity now to ask about the HAP. If urgent care clinic is update, what is the update on that? Is conversations being held? And I say this because this is related to our health care, and our health care is related to the budget, because SZV will carry this strain. And SZV occurs for 75% of VSA's expense. I also would like to point out that the famous evaluation or audit that they used was actually for the first 6 months only. I found that out recently, so it wasn't even a recent. You're gonna use an audit on 6 months, whereby we don't even recheck if checks and balances were done. And I'm asking the government, we can point at SFA how much we want, but SFA falls directly under the Minister of VSA, that if you wanted this project to continue with stipulations, it would have. Because I believe almost everyone in here have benefited from this project, and I have spoken to almost everyone personally. And I look to my left, because while some may feel that they're outgoing, so just leave the decision to an incoming minister. Sickness doesn't wait. Stress, emergencies doesn't wait. So you do not get to determine the timeline because you are leaving and leaving the decision to an incoming minister. I leave it there, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Otley. And we continue as MP Irion has requested the floor. MP Irion, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just something that MP Otley mentioned that triggered another question. Regarding SSV, there was a draft agreement on the amount owed. I know this has been a topic for years, obviously, and I know SOAB and CFT actually said that the agreement that was reached to execute, even if the eyes have to be closed, let's get it done as soon as possible. But again, looking at the multi-annual budget, I do not see that agreement impacted. I don't see that in the toelichting either. So the agreement for SFV on the amount owed, is there an agreement? Is a timeline on an agreement? And is that reflected in the multi-annual budget? And also the APS and also the SFV management of the building itself. So that was also a draft that was left that should have been finalized to be executed for 2025. But I don't see those taken up in the toelichting for the multi-annual or even for this year, because I think they could have started this year, I'm not too sure, but I don't see it reflected. So where are we regarding those? The maintenance of the building, yes.
Thank you, MP Irion. Thank you, members of Parliament and Minister. I see we also have, before I add some questions to those already posed, I gave the floor to MP Brug. MP Brug, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Minister of Finance and your support staff. Good afternoon, colleagues. I, too, would like to ask some questions. However, I would also follow my colleague, MP Lacruz. Most of the questions I will put in writing and also send to the Minister. But just to keep it also a little bit brief, I just...
MP Brug, if I could just add or interject something based on what you stated, but it goes for all of the MPs, that as requested by the Secretary General, we ask of you that your questions are provided to our Secretariat in writing, and that goes for all, so that we can do the reporting swiftly.
No
problem. So thank you, but
no.
Yes.
No, it's just because I'm not going to ask all the questions on the
That's
floor,
okay.
So just to save some time as well. With regard to the cuts, my question is through you, Madam Chair Lady, to the Minister of Finance. Are any of these cuts directly or indirectly affecting our seniors or other vulnerable groups? I also would like to know, for example, I looked through I understood that there was a cut with regard to the Ministry of Education. One of the key things that I've always talked about is about our breakfast or meal programs for our children that go to school. Does the cut in the Ministry of Education affect what is currently being made available to schools for certain meal or breakfast programs? Is it possible that I can get, because we speak about ways of generating funds. One of the programs that I was part of but never was completed was called the BOA. The BOA. This is a project that was started. It included various departments, and basically the BOA was is a program that authorized certain individuals to go out there and enforce the law, and by that you find individuals, and that's also a form of income for the government, for those that do not abide by the law. I was trying to look through the budget. I did not see it. Is that a project that is completely cut out of the budget, or is it something that we're going to see within short? Or did I overlook it? But the BOA project, when I see the cuts for the budget, it makes me a little bit worried. Why? As it was alluded, one of us, or some of us, are going to be members of, sitting on the other side, becoming ministers. So we are already thinking forward on what are we going to receive, or what conditions we're going to receive the ministries in. With that, my question is this budget cut going to be a reflection in the 2025 budget? So is this budget cut going to be a reflection in the 2025 budget? I understand also with regard to there has been a lot of cuts when it comes to personnel, a lot of cuts when it comes to expertise. So considering that there are so much technical assistance that is going to be needed for pending legislations, again, are these cuts limited only to 2024 and will be restored in 2025 for acquiring expertise outside of government where needed? How does these budget cuts relate to the employee survey recently conducted and to the proposed cuts for personnel? I also noticed that there's one of the things that a lot of ministers or different departments complain about is shortage of personnel. And one of the things I've always said, it's very important for us to invest in our people in order for our people to give us the service that we deserve in the community. The cuts, are the cuts somewhat also limited when it comes to, are the cuts also when it comes to the personnel as a result of the recent increase of the situation where a lot of our civil servants are leaving the government apparatus, the government service, in order to go to the private sector? Is that one of the reasons why you see a drop in certain areas within the budget? Madam Chair Lady, through you, I would like to also ask, for example, the presentation that was given by the minister, I think it was very clear for me. I would like the Minister of Finance to also explain why exactly, I can't remember how much was required from the minister to cut the budget by, but why exactly that amount was required. I can't remember if it was 22 or 32 million guilders or something that was required to the budget to be adjusted. Is it possible that the minister can explain exactly why that request was made? I understand it was some of it is based on the recommendation as well, but perhaps it is something else in addition to that as well. Madam Chair Lady, as I stated, I'm going to make all the questions in writing, and just to explain why is because as a new member of Parliament, it is actually the first time that I'm diving into such a big book, such important legislation, and it is very important. I didn't receive, let's say, a crash course on it, so for that reason, I'm going to send it in writing. I'm going to really dive in it, and then after, for the following meeting, I'll be a lot more forthcoming and prepared as well for making a decision on the amendments of the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Brug. And while I completely understand, and I do want to state the offer, because I was dead serious when I said I can assist you with that big book, because that's a field I come from where government budgets are concerned. But in all seriousness, I need to tell all of the members of Parliament, when it comes to handling a matter in Central Committee, your questions actually need to be stated here. questions need to be stated here, and then we ask you, for expediency's sake, to send them in writing so that it can be included, but actually they need to be stated here. However, don't despair, because what we're going to do is take all the questions that are going to be posed now. We're going to adjourn, and the minister and her colleagues can start to work on the answers, and then this central committee will continue, and if you have additional questions, you can pose them then. But all questions need to be posed, and if you pose questions separately in writing, they will follow another procedure. They will follow the procedure of a member having the right to ask questions, but they will not be part of the reporting on the budget. So I just wanted to make that part clear where the handling is concerned. So MP Brugge, but also to the others, that's the way we have to proceed with handling the draft budget. As MP Brugge correctly stated, it is a draft national ordinance and has to follow the procedures in the Central Committee of Reporting and responding by the government ministers. So we continue with the questions for today, as I gave the floor to MP York. No, oh, you? Yes, okay. So, yes, he had actually. Oh, you guys did something there that kind of changed the sequence? Okay, based on the two MPs, we now go to MP Irion, and I give him the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It will be my last question until the minister is back. I remember reading an article from the Minister of Rummy. I think it was a list of accomplishments, and a significant portion of the land was given out early on this year, signed over. And when you look at the RFT, the Rijkswet Financieel Toezicht, even though it's a very old law, it states that over a certain amount of money, a landsbesluit, an LB, a decree, has to be made up and it has to be published. So I'd like to confirm to you, Madam Chair, if this was done. This is a question posed to the Ministry of Rummy. If this was done for any land given out this year, especially the one that was mentioned as accomplishment. Then after that answer, I'll have some follow-up questions.
Thank you, MP Irion, and I know, but before I give the floor to MP York, let me, on the basis of a request, just adjourn for 5 minutes. This is not the adjourning of this meeting itself. This is just an adjournment for 5 minutes. So meeting adjourned for 5 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. After a brief adjournment, I continue with giving the floor to members of Parliament who wish to react or ask questions regarding the draft national ordinance before us, which is the amended budget 2024 as presented by the Minister of Finance, which presentation started earlier today. I continue and I give the floor to MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Minister and support staff, colleagues, and viewing public. Madam Chair, I would like to start off by congratulating two individuals here today. The first one being our new Minister of Everything, Minister Lyndon Lewis, for dominating the front page of the newspaper today with some very positive acts. Keep up the good work. And secondly, our Minister of Finance for her addendum that was approved yesterday in Curacao. On that note, Madam Chair, I would like to add, speak on the fact that I ran, to get in this seat, I ran a very, very clean campaign. And I intend to continue doing that while sitting here. I didn't have to bash anyone. I didn't have to play politics. I did it the right way. And, you know, while posing my questions and going over everything Enion related, I was very deliberate in how I did it and what I did. Questions that I found to be a bit controversial, a bit debatable, I willfully asked behind closed doors, either off camera and closed door sessions. Why? Because I'm very cognizant of the environment I'm in, and I didn't want the minister to feel that I was playing games with her addendum. And I even played an open hand, and I told the minister, even though I don't agree, and to be a fact, be 100% clear, I didn't agree with the first one either. And I was very clear with that, and my colleague on my faction knows that as well, but we were where we were at the period of time. And I told the minister what I needed to feel a bit more comfortable to be open to voting for the addendum. And I was honest with that, and the minister couldn't bring forth what I asked for, which is understandably so. So I vote with my conscience, and after I voted for the minister, while shaking my hand to tell me she don't agree, but she understands why, somebody else was supposed to have to say I make sense in what I was saying in my motivation, and then to see 5 minutes before I sit here, hit piece from the minister telling me and accusing me of playing petty politics. I think we need to be cognizant of the seats we are holding as two of the highest bodies in the country, and that while we playing and slinging mud, you know, they have kids out there looking up to us and using us as an example. And if we can't agree to disagree on a topic and keep it professional and keep it respectful, then we are setting the wrong example for those coming up under us. So where that is concerned, that's all I wanted to say concerning that. And, you know, I won't always make everybody happy in here by voting for what they want, but I will always vote for my conscience because, as the minister said, I need to be able to sleep at night. So with that being said, I would like to move on to my questions. First question would be to the Minister of Vromi. And also congratulations to him for restarting the road resurfacing projects, and specifically the one where they're busy now on the Point Blanche Road. I have one or two questions concerning that. July 10th article, the minister made some claims to where he will be taking the road resurfacing projects going forward to another level when it comes to quality. And he made mention of a couple of things when it comes to thicknesses of asphalt, et cetera, et cetera. And I would like to know, he made mention to 6 to 8 centimeters of asphalt. And all these numbers have trickle-down effects to the expenditures of the project. And I would like to know what is the thickness of the construction being done now on the Point Blanche Road. He also made mention to the drainage being, drainages being tackled and that we're going to do less meters of road and more in-depth to tackle all the challenges where the roads are concerned. I would like to know what is being done concerning that on the Point Blanche Road. Further, the Bernard Bridge, Prince Bernard Bridge, I remember in my former capacity a couple months ago, there was a tender to repair the bridge, I think of some 500,000 plus guilders. Since then, I've seen a construct of a stone tablet with the name of the bridge on it. I've seen paint, a lot of superficial things being done to the bridge. My question is, what is the timeline for the exact construction elements for the bridge? When will it be repaired? What are they doing and who's doing it? A couple questions about the road fund. A couple press briefings ago, the minister made mention of the road fund being part of the 2024 amendment. Correct me if I'm wrong. I couldn't find it anywhere in the amendment. Concerning something he said about the road fund, I know that the aim is to reallocate at a certain point the road tax to the road fund.
MP York, I hate to underbreak you, but we are having a little issue, I'm understanding, with our internet connection. Let's just adjourn for another 5 minutes until Alvin gets it fixed, whatever it is. Okay, so we'll adjourn for another 5 minutes just to allow that check to take place. Meeting adjourned. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The problem has been resolved, it seems, and so we can continue with MP York, who was busy posing his questions on the draft before us. So I invite MP York to continue. MP York, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome back, everyone, I would say. Okay, so the road fund. The question I had about the road fund was that I understood that the road tax eventually is supposed to be reallocated to the road fund, along with other revenue-generating ideas, new revenue-generating ideas. My first question would be, what are the exact current ideas for the revenue generation other than corporate social responsibilities? And if the ministers of the opinion that reallocating the road tax fund to the road tax funds to the road fund is actually should be done in a more phased manner, because right now, in my opinion, although I understand what the long-term idea of it is, right now doing that even for 2025 budget, you will be moving one problem into another, because then even though from me will then be better taken care of, you create a problem elsewhere. So I'm curious to the stance of the minister on that, even though I do understand the long-term vision when it comes to reallocating the road tax. The MLK, Martin Luther King School, I heard at the press briefing that the tender for the tiles in the classrooms is now out. My question is, seeing that in my former capacity, I know that the roof and the school was handed over in February, and to hear that between February and now that the only thing to speak about is maybe paint, windows, and tiles, makes me question what has been done in the meantime. So I'm wondering, what is the timeline moving forward, and what do we plan to do and use the school for between now and next school year? Furthermore, there's been a cut in school materials of school funds for 13.1 million. My question is, what are the plans to mitigate the loss in school material funds? Because a lot of the different schools and school teachers right now, I can understand, are being frustrated with the fact of they don't have the proper school materials to teach the kids. So the question is, I understand cuts have to be made, but what are the plans to mitigate the losses where school materials are concerned? For the Minister of Justice, what is his stance? Okay, I understand that he won't be there for a long time, but what are the Minister of Finance's stance in securing funds moving forward for a proper forensic lab? I know that has been the talk for some years now, but I'm curious to the plans for the forensic lab moving forward. I think, like everyone else here, I was shocked to hear the news of a tax holiday being offered to a major developer. My question is, I don't want to jump the gun and assume that there is no agreements, understandings made for corporate social responsibilities or anything thereof. My question would be, may I see the documents of said agreement and what it exactly entails, such as where does that corporate social responsibility fall, what is it going to be, and to whom, and hopefully it's in an area of need and not those in an area with those that already have. MP Kotai said a while ago that, you know, we should hold off on asking questions about any revenue generating ideas. I understand we can't ask what is in place now, but I don't think after 5 months that asking what the ideas are moving forward is a misplaced question. I have some questions concerning that, concerning revenue generating ideas, more of what the stance of the finance minister is concerning these, such as operational licenses per branch instead of per entity for lottery booths. There are some odd 200 slot machines in grocery stores. What are the thoughts on that when it comes to taxation? There are a lot of things when it concerns lottery, the category that falls under lottery, everything that falls under lottery, that are not in place yet or haven't been made yet. I'm curious to the Minister of Finance's position moving forward, seeing that we're in a position of having to be creative and to generate funds, what her thoughts are on those, because we have something like some odd 100 booths and over 200 slot machines. So that's a lot of, a lot of potential funds that could be generated there. There have been drastic cuts in the sports budget for local and regional tournaments, which are essentially the means of exposing our athletes and getting them the needed experience and development. Again, understandably so that cuts have to be made, but what are the strategies? Are there any strategies to mitigate these and to try to get our athletes the attention that they deserve? And finally, I think the question has been, not finally, before I go to the next point, our next idea for revenue generation, since we're giving away tax holidays to major developers, if that is true, what about tax holidays for small business owners, especially startups, for the first 2 years? What is the stance on the minister when it comes to that? And last but not least, I think the question has already been posed, what is the status of the legal help desk? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. The next speaker is MP Kotai, who I invite to take the floor. MP Kotai?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just forgot to mention earlier, I wanted to inquire as well on the status of our stoplights, the one stoplights that we have in St. Martin. Stoplight. Yeah, that we have in St. Martin. What's the status of it? Are we planning to get that back up in order? And just my last statement once again, just to be clear, I am in full agreement with MP Lacruz in getting the COM in front of us in a closed-door session to discuss our revenue-generating ideas for 2025 moving forward. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, MP Kotai. I see MP York. Are you requesting the floor, MP York? Yes, you may continue, MP York.
MP Kotai brought a very good point. Thanks for that. See the teamwork already going good. The questions concerning the stoplight. The old system that we used for the stoplight was basically a time-based system. And I'm very much in agreement with the current Minister of Vromi that we should take infrastructure to the next level. So my question is, are we replacing that with the same system? Are we going to go over to an intensity-based system to where, for example, late nights you don't have to sit at a red light and there's zero traffic on the road? So that will be my question concerning the stoplight.
Thank you, MP York. And I now give the floor to MP Lacruz. MP Lacruz.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. One more question. I remember some time back, the previous government made a plan on how to collect the taxes owed by the casinos and the lottery companies. How far are we with those? Have they moved on the offer to get the discount and pay up some monies? And has the minister looked into those that did not take up on the offer? Thank you, Madam Chair Lady.
Thank you, MP Lacruz. Minister, before I go over to offer you the floor in terms of how we will continue with the meeting, let me just add, because several of the questions have been posed by colleagues earlier, but I would like to know, Minister, and this also Many of my questions, in fact, have to do more going towards the budget 2025, as we are approximately 10 weeks away from the end of the year, and we're talking budget 2024. Now, I know because some serious changes have been made, that of course those changes need to be reflected in the budget. But extremely important in reviewing this, the budget, the draft amended budget, is of course the so-called implementation reports that we get every quarter. I just wish to reiterate here that the comparison between that report and budget is not an easy one, and which has been recognized by, for example, the General Audit Chamber, but nevertheless, we get those reports based on the Kingdom Law Financial Supervision, and they give an accurate account of how the budget is being implemented. So in looking more at going towards the discussion on the draft budget to be received for 2025, which, by the way, I know the Minister of Finance referred to it in her press conference, I believe it was, but still I would like to know the status of the draft budget 2025. And in the context of looking at our next year's budget, I would like the Minister to provide Parliament now in these discussions, so when we come back with the answers at least, is there a clear overview of our taxpayers' base? So our taxpayers' base in terms of the numbers, of course, how many registered taxpayers we have, etc. And if it is an estimate that is not based on the registered taxpayers, how much is the basis vis-a-vis the amount of crib numbers that are right now in place? So if I can get that comparison. So do we have the taxpayers' base? If not, if that is only based on the crib numbers, then I would like to know how many they are. I join my colleagues in asking if the Minister can get us an update with respect to the overall financial position of the SZV. I also echo the questions for a similar overview to be provided of the APS. And then, Minister, I want to make a comment with respect to several comments that I've heard, many with which I agree, including, for example, the cleanliness of our island. And oftentimes you hear persons say that, we don't have any laws, people can do what they want, etc., etc. But while we don't have laws covering everything, we do have laws in place, for example, where garbage, etc., is concerned. And I say this to reach the point that I believe, which I would like the Minister, after discussing it in the Council of Ministers, so to also get a feeling from the colleague ministers that one of our biggest problems right now is the lack of control and inspection. So I would like whether that can be confirmed, and if it is so, does the government have any plans to address this matter? Because in the area of the Ministry of Romy, for example, there are laws in place. In the area, as I mentioned, of garbage, we have a very old yet relevant garbage ordinance. And again, I want to ask, does the Minister concur, and can the Minister find out if her colleagues concur with the fact that in so many of the areas, Tiat, Vromi, and others, we lack the capacity of inspection and control? And if that is felt the same way by the Council of Ministers, can the Council of Ministers prepare a plan to deal with this matter? Through you, Minister of Finance, to the Minister of Romy, I want to repeat questions that I have asked over and over again, and that regards the zoning of the country. As we have been informed in the past, the idea of individual district zoning or the intention, that intention and efforts, those efforts have been abandoned, and now it is the idea to come with a complete overall zoning for the country. Where are those plans? I joined the questions with respect to collecting the fees of casinos and lotteries, and even the smaller fees of, for example, using public property. Again, oftentimes we feel we don't have laws, but there are laws, and while the income, the revenue from such might be small, it also has a deterring effect that people don't up and just put down, whether it be signs, billboards, whatever have you, all over the place. Is this being enforced? Is this being enforced? So also those type of permissions that are necessary and that come with a cost, albeit small, but again, it also have a deterrent effect. With respect to the lottery and lottery booths, I know that I think it was sometime late last year, an ordinance containing general measures was established by the government, as ordinances containing general measures must be. So those are established by government, not by parliament. And one such was established for lottery permits and booths and branches, etc., etc. However, that ordinance, or no, rather that general decree, so a so-called LBHAM, the implementation of that LBHAM was left up to the government to do by national decree. So my question is, has the national decree been issued? And if not, when is it government's intention to issue the national decree to put into force the LBHAM regarding lotteries and the like? I also joined a colleague who referred to, and of course, expressed words of congratulations with the successful national job fair that was held. I know that when the National Employment Service Center was created, the intention was not only to have these type of, or support these types of matchmaking, so job opportunities with job seekers, but also to kind of follow the process of persons being told that they could get employment, or even some who received employment or employment offers on the spot. Saying all of this to ask if we can get an overview of that unemployment/employment picture on St. Martin, because as I'm sure the minister will know, the unemployment number differs depending what source is used to put forward the unemployment number on St. Martin. And talking about sources and referring back to my earlier comment about casinos and lotteries, I know that the IMF, again, has recently in their report referred to these type of revenues. Is any account being taken of the comments or commentary by the IMF is an additional question. Again, I ask, and I say again because it's not the first time, as I look at the Ring Road and the surrounding area being cleaned up, which is a very good thing, and I see them measuring and that type of stuff, but I am particularly interested in the answer to my question regarding the vendors who are in that area. Again, it's nothing new. I have been asking this, and I want to put it in the context of offering and or allowing small and micro businesses to exist, but also to be done in a nicely planned way. So what exactly are the plans there and the plans that the Chamber of Commerce had for this area? Again, what is happening, and is it being coordinated in terms of what is done by whom, etc., is my question to the Minister of Finance in order to get it from her colleague minister or ministers. One of my colleagues referred to the upcoming FCCA conference, and one of my recent comments to our Minister of TIAT was that my impression is that the island is dirty. It is. It just is. You pass in the different districts, and to me, it just is. Which prompts me to ask, because this also accounts for the island, given that outlook as not really being taken care of, notwithstanding the amount of money which is paid by government to keep the island clean. Where do we stand with the car wreck removals? There's a vehicle on just one of the many examples that I could mention on some of our main roads. There is one that has been there for the longest of time on the Canagita Road. And the car has been there, and I was quite happy to notice, I hope it is a notification from VROMI on the car, but since that notification has been put, the car is being stripped. The car is being stripped, tires are being removed, but the car is still there with the notification and just being stripped. Just one of the many examples. Has the government taken a good look, every ministry as far as they are concerned, to the results of the population census? And are there any actions that the government believes needs to be taken on the results of the census? If so, which actions does the government believe that need to be taken? A note that I made at the time of the 2024 budget, I want to also put to the Minister of Finance now, and that is the following. Again, the 2025 budget, hopefully the approval thereof as early as can be, and then to have a public budget made of the budget, a budget that we can put online and people can understand and, understand what government has been putting the different revenues towards. So again, I put it to the minister if that can be looked at, and I keep referring to the fact that even when we were not so technologically advanced as we are today, the finance department of government used to have a nice little public budget, a little booklet, but at least where one could see, as per the ministry, how much money is budgeted and to be spent, and be spent on what. And then I want to ask the minister, and it brings me to a question officially asked by Member of Parliament Gumbs, but I want to put it now in the context of asking the Minister of Finance if it can be put to the Prime Minister in this case, and that has to do with the laws that are at the Council of Advice. And very specifically, I would like to know about those draft laws, which, what's the status, where are they? And having to do with the budget in terms of the vacation allowance and those kind of things. Where are those laws that needed to be completed ever since it was proposed that vacation allowance and the increases will be paid? So I said this, I mentioned those specifically to refer to the question by MP Gumbs, which actually had to do with a complete overview of which laws are at the Council of Advice. So I would like to interject that there, although I will officially ask for that overview as well of the Council of Advice. And then I want to, I heard MP Lacruz made a statement with respect to meeting with the Council of Ministers, and I can assure MP Lacruz that that is part of my What I want to get at is a protocol with the Council of Ministers, and that has to do with meetings of the Council of Ministers and faction leaders. I want to discuss shorter response times with the government as far as questions by members of parliament are concerned. And so I just wanted to inform MP Lacruz that that is part of the discussions that I believe are very necessary to be had with the government. So, Minister, let me make sure that I have added everything that I would have liked you to take along with the other questions. Yes, I have. And I see two MPs would also like to add something, and I give the floor before, actually not concluding really, because this meeting will not be concluded today, but before I adjourn to caucus with the minister, I'll give the floor to MP Durand. MP Durand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. I do have a few more points to add on the questions that I posed earlier. Through you, Madam Chair, I would like to know, because I know that traffic continues to be a major issue. I don't think that's going to really change until we get new roads. I know Link 6 has been something in the pipeline for quite a time. During my tenure, we pushed towards it. It was even allocated as a priority project through the trust fund, but due to issues with landowners, it never came to fruition. I would like to know through you, Madam Chair, because I know this is an interministerial situation when it comes to traffic with school buses. It is a possibility to explore the option of having, let's say, a sort of a hub system by Jose Lake Ballpark and by the Raoul Village Ballpark, in the sense of having buses come there. So instead of parents going all the way up into the cul-de-sac basin with so much of vehicles at the same time, if something like that can be set up, whether it be funded through government based on the regular school bus system, or parents would then maybe pay $25 a month to have that done, which I think would be definitely a savings, because the inconvenience first and foremost, and also with respect to having to go up there and spend so much money in gas every day. So I just would like to know if this is something that the government can consider. I know that mainly the education ministry is over the transport of the kids, but TIAT and also justice plays a role when it comes to the traffic as well. So I would like to know if that is an option. Secondly, when we come to revenue generating, Madam Chair, I think that we need to become more creative and more open-minded. I know over the years there's been this saying that, people with tinted cars cause violence, contribute to violence. I don't believe in it. That's my personal opinion. Around the world, tint is regulated in different ways, and I think that we now need to move away from that stigma that it is a crime or anything like that, and see how we could legalize it and also be creative in terms of generating revenue. I would like to know if the government is open to, let's say, for instance, tied to your number plate purchase, if you want to have a tinted vehicle, that you pay whether it's a $50 extra per year to have that done. I believe that Curacao was already busy with legislation where that is concerned, so I don't think there's really need to reinvent the wheel. And I just want to know if the government is open to the idea and also charging an additional fee for it. And if so, I will be able to then expound deeper based on the ideas that I have. Those are the two additions that I have, Madam Chair, and I would like to thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, MP Durand, also for your suggestion through the minister to the COM. And I now continue as I give the floor to MP De Wever. MP De Wever, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. It was actually just to add on another question related to your Ring Road inquiries. So it's just whether or not the Ring Road is still going to be considered as a traffic alleviation route. So if they're going to, besides the vendors that are there, if it's going to be used to ease up a little bit the traffic and the situation in town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP De Wever. And I know we continue. We have some additional questions or comments from some members. So I give the floor immediately to MP York. MP York, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you, I would like to ask the Minister, going back on the road resurfacing project, I would like to add one question to that list. Are there any height surveys being done for the roads of choice before any grading or construction of the road is taking place. So is there any height surveys being done? Thank you.
Thank you, MP York. MP Brug, you have something to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady. Based on the comment that you made pertaining to the asking or sending the questions in writing, I'm just going to make it a little bit simpler for myself and also for the minister. The document that we received here, it has all the different cuts. I would like to know for each ministry, what projects or services would have been affected by the cuts. So what projects or services would be affected by each of the cuts? And I think that would make it a lot easier for me, because once I have that document with all the information, I can then continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MP Brug. At this point in time, there is no other MP desiring to speak. I am going to adjourn for 5 minutes. I'll caucus with the minister. We have tentatively scheduled to continue with the Central Committee meeting, so this meeting tomorrow at 11. Of course, it will only make sense if the minister can come back with the answers so that we can continue the deliberation. So right now, I'm going to adjourn for 5 minutes, get that straight, and then let the members of parliament know what the expectations are. This meeting is going to be adjourned for 5 minutes. Members of Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, Minister of Finance and support staff of Parliament, welcome back after that brief adjournment to decide on the continuation of this Central Committee meeting of Parliament on the draft amended budget 2024. And it isn't scheduled to continue, with which the Minister of Finance concurs that we will continue this meeting tomorrow at 11 a.m. And the Minister is going to return and is asking her colleagues, who of course have been keeping note of the meeting and the questions, if they can then in sequence also come back to address their questions, rather than the Minister coming back to answer what she would get from her colleagues, and then we engage in the Minister again on topics that are of the other members of COM. So it's going to be, we're going to continue at 11, Minister. Before I adjourn, Minister, is there anything that you would like to add? Have you received any further information from colleagues? Please, Minister. Yeah, no.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as stated, I will return tomorrow at 11 to answer the questions related to my ministry. I created a sequence in our chat. I have it that the PM will be next, Min VSR third, TIAT fourth. I believe I would have to come in to answer the questions on behalf of the Minister of TIAT, VROMI, Justice, and ECYS. That's the order that I've placed it, and I'm hoping that they can all respect that position.
Thank you very much, Minister. And if any changes, our Secretariat will hear that from you, and then we will adjust accordingly if as necessary, not if necessary, as necessary. And so for now, this Central Committee meeting of Parliament is going to be adjourned. I want to thank all the members of Parliament for their questions and comments on the topic before us, the draft National Ordinance Amended Budget 2024. I want to thank the Minister and her support staff for their presence here and presenting the draft amended budget. I want to thank the support staff of the Ministry as well as of Parliament. Members of Parliament, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good afternoon as I adjourn this meeting until 11 a.m. tomorrow. Members of Parliament, of course, will be informed of the schedule. There's some other items that will be communicated to you. So, meeting adjourned.